Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about phrases. So let's really quick come over here. We're going to talk about this. So this is going to be one of the only videos that I consult this material. We're going to be going into chord progressions a lot more. Why chord progressions? Why not more melodic, phrasey stuff? And also there was a person who was asking about multiple phrases fitting together. I'm going to approach that in this video some, hopefully give you some cool ideas. The reason is chord progressions are like just more useful generally. Generally, if you have a cool chord progression, it's pretty simple to come up with a cool melody. Now, I'm just saying that's more common. There are times when you have cool melodies, like the great Dabu. I never learned how to say it, but it's a waltz. That waltz. That waltz was one where it was actually written down. I forgot his name. What's his name? Strauss. Strauss had the idea. I believe he was in a bar when it happened, and he wrote it down on like his shirt sleeve or something. That's one of the rare occasions where you have a really solid melody, and so you write that down, and then later on, compose this super famous waltz. The great Dabu, whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's go look it up. If you've not heard of it, I'm not saying the name right, but you've totally heard this waltz. Maybe not guaranteed, but pretty much guaranteed. Okay, so phrases. So let's really quick talk about this. This is what we're going to be looking at making. I'm going to break it down for you. That's what we're going to be looking at making. Now, there are a number of things I could do to make this more interesting. This isn't necessarily like what I would settle on as a final product or by any means. There's a number of things I could do, but I wanted to keep it simple. Like, for example, this bottom arpeggiator thing. I write out every single note. Occasionally I go to an arpeggiator, but it'll usually be because I'm going for a specific feel. Normally, writing out the notes one by one is just way more efficient. Like, I get the note I want the first time I want it. Like, there it is. And I can manipulate it easier. At least that's the way I feel about it usually when I'm coming into something like this. But I follow really simple chord progressions. And then the melody, this entire first chord progression is where I got the first melody from, and then I changed the chord progression. This first one's the 1 5 6 4 chord progression, which is arguably like one of the most famous ones ever. And then after that, it was like super easy to come up with a melody. We start combining scales with your structure and all that stuff. So let's back it up and talk about a couple other things. So first, we need to talk about a motif. What is a motif? A motif is the smallest identifiable musical idea. So you have a musical idea, it's called a motif. The most famous one, motifs can be pitch related. So if you just think of the pitches, like the actual pitch of all the notes, and then they could be rhythmically related. So most of the time, rhythmic motifs are more memorable. They're easier to remember, and usually they contain an element of pitch that's pretty with it. But like, for example, da 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 da, that one is an example of a rhythmic motif. But it's also, if you're on the same page as I am right now, you also may have been inspired by Beethoven's Fifth with da 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 da, that thing. Yeah, and I know I just sang some wrong notes, whatever. But that's an example of a really great motif. Like, it's 3 notes long, and it's got really strong elements of pitch and really strong elements of rhythm. Another thing that defines a motif is you develop it. So you change it, you present it in new ways to the listener, you're developing it. A phrase is a melodic idea. It's a musical idea. Technically, it's like an independent musical idea that is terminated, meaning ended, by a cadence. So you remember all those things I went over with cadences? Yeah, welcome to it. So when you have an independent musical idea, may or may not contain motifs. So some of the musical phrase may just be for that one moment. It may not appear later. And sometimes it becomes thematic material and all manner of other things. that would be the phrase. So generally, okay, one other thing. You can break down a phrase into sub phrases. So you come into sub phrases and that's just a piece of a phrase. Now, a lot of this is kind of subjective, but once you find like the harmonic goal, the cadence, you can pretty much discover where the phrase is. So sometimes it can actually get quite complicated, and there could be like debates about, oh, is this the phrase or is this just a sub phrase of a bigger phrase, and all that kind of thing. We're not going to worry ourselves too much with it. So here I've got two phrases. I have an 8-bar phrase. So here it is, and then it's terminated by a cadence, and then the one starts up again over here with a new phrase, and then again it's terminated by a cadence. Now, one other thing. So let's really quick go over some basic melodic writing, like 101 things. So the reason I don't really want to cover part writing, I'm probably going to eventually just leave the MIDI land and move over to music theory land pretty much exclusively after I get through all these chords and secondary dominants. And I'll probably come in and update this occasionally. But the reason is part writing, you really need to be working with sheet music because there's a whole bunch of rules that are way harder to see in MIDI land. So here I'm not really obeying any particular rules, but I am following some general guidelines. Occasionally I break them. So we haven't talked about melodic writing in detail, but generally you write only chord tones. We're going to be very limited in this melodic writing. So I tried to stick to mostly chord tones. Like for example, whoa, bro, dude. So here we've got a C major chord, right? That's our one. I'm moving in C, by the way. And here I've got C major. Now this is it's something else. Okay. We're not going to get into details here about that. It's not really details, but it's just stuff we're not going to worry about in this series. So you can do neighboring tones. You can do, other notes that ascend in the scale. There are fancy names for a lot of embellishments that people do. But you generally want to write chord tones. If you do have a note that's not in the chord you are currently playing, you want that note to be on a weaker beat. Here, my melody, this just works out nice. What's going on here? But generally, if you do something like this, you'll have it move from something that's not in your chord tone. Off the beat. So it's not on the strong beat. These are weak. They're weak notes. So that's one. So you generally want to outline chord tones. Like that should be pretty self-explanatory. Now you can write out those lines. They're called passing tones when you do stuff like that. And you want them to be on the weaker beats. And there's something called the focal point, which is the highest note in a melody. And you generally, as these are all guidelines, you want one. You do not want multiple focal points. It confuses the listener. So here I've got one very clear focal point. There's another couple things about just intervallic writing. So this is for like singable melodies. If you jump up a perfect anything, so the biggest interval leap you should have is an octave. You should not jump over an octave. So like famous examples of an octave jump are like Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. That song is I think it's a song. That one song. Okay, it's definitely a song. Okay, I'm sorry. And what that song has a famous octave leap. So the octave leaps are okay. You want to use them sparingly. They're hard to sing, and in general, it's just not the great melodies. If you want people to like really get caught to your melody, you want to use them wisely, sparingly. If you do jump over a perfect fourth, you generally go back. You head back that way. So if you went that way, you go back. So you go up a perfect fourth, something like C to F, and then you'll go back down. It creates more interest in your melody. That's another thing we didn't talk about was contour. Like when you have a scale ascending, you generally want things to go up and down. You want a more interesting contour. Something that's too simple is not that interesting. It's not going to create an interesting melody. So here I've got good examples of ups and downs. This is like a pretty large leap, but as you see, I go back down a little bit. So do. If you can continue ascending, there's like no rule that says you can't. It's just, general melodic writing. And yeah, now a lot of this, it's something you just become personally familiar with. You do ear training, like I've been doing a lot of ear training recently, and that just improves your ability to hear what you're going to write. It just gives you a better idea. If you do a lot of ear training, you'll get way better at just hearing what you want to do. So if you have an idea in your head, it will take a lot less time to figure out how it looks on paper. So that might be something you may consider doing, is sitting down and saying da na 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 na, and then you sit here and you write notes until you get that. You get da na 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 na. You get it on there and you get it the way you want it. And then you do another one. You just sit here and do that. Like, that'll make you so much better at melodic writing, like way better. So consider doing that. Being able to transcribe what you hear in your head to paper is a valuable skill. And not settling. Because you may come across something else that's cool and you don't want to settle. Don't settle, because like then you're just wasting your time. You're never going to be able to write what you actually hear. You'll end up settling on everything that you do. And sure, it'll work out sometimes, but you want to have a skill where you can write it out and then mess with it. Then you can settle. If you want something more interesting, you can move from there. Like, don't settle on what you heard, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to accidentally come across every melody you write. You're going to have issues. You're going to get blocks way easier. Okay, so that's general melodic writing. 101. There's a million things we could say about this. And again, I'm not going to go too extensively into part writing because it's just way, way, way harder in the piano, like unnecessary harder on the piano roll versus like in sheet music. Because there's all sorts of rules about what the outer voices do, what the inner voices do, what the spacings between the voices are, what notes go where, when they move. You know, there's just tons of stuff. So, and a lot of it is, if you're going to get that serious about it, you should just learn, like, I'm drawing the line. You need to learn written music. Okay, so my chords, now I stuck to this first one. I stuck to a very basic chord progression. One of the first ones I'll probably cover, and that is the 1, the 5, the, what is this? The 1, 5, 1, 5, 6, minor 6. So 1, 5, minor 6, 4, which the 6 diatonically in major is going to be minor anyways. So it's 6 and then 4. So yeah, that's the first chord progression. Here we have this isn't a deceptive cadence because it's not a 5 chord, but it's like a close cousin because it's the 4 chord, and that usually will go to 1 as well. But instead I go to the 3. So I went to the 3, da da da, and I kept everything real simple. Like my bottom notes are pretty self-explanatory. Then I went back to the 4, then I went up to the, then I went up to the A, to the 6, to the 5, which is an authentic cadence. But instead, I pulled the deceptive cadence, because I want to keep going. And I wrote out another chord progression that, did some stuff. Pretty basic. And then I came over here to the 5, 1. So authentic cadence. So here we have one phrase. Let me come over here. So here we've got one phrase terminated by a cadence, and then another phrase terminated by a cadence. And then we could break these up into 2 sets of 4, which could be considered like sub phrases. Maybe not exactly sets of 4. There was one thing I wanted to say, something about chords. I see here I added in some notes to make the line smoother stepwise as we go into the next thing. Oh, and I have strings too. They're just outlining some of the chords as I go. This is something that I'd probably fiddle with more and make more dynamic and interesting. And I do have a number of volume things going on in the sustain, which was like quite a bit more complicated to figure out. If you're using Contact, you actually have to open up a MIDI channel, configure a thing, and make your control CC64, and you have to put it on the same port all as Jazzy Jumbo. Anyways, that's where the sustain is coming from. If you're like, how did he automate the sustain? That's how. I think it had to do with melodic writing. Anyways, multiple phrases. Let's talk about multiple phrases real quick. That's not what I wanted to say, but you get the idea. So there's the chords, and then the melody follows along with the chords. So this first 8 bars is the first phrase, and then to create a phrase that smoothly flows into the next one, it doesn't sound stupid, I know that battle because I used to have, like, when I was first writing, that was one of my biggest questions, was everything sounds so corny. A lot of it comes down to just the interest of your chord progression. So I tried to pull a few interesting moves and did some interesting things here, like E. So this is A minor. So I think I said I went to the E, the 3. I didn't do that. I went to the A minor. I wasn't paying attention totally. This chord's a little complicated. It's E, C, A, E, and then G, which is, it just was a good note to stick down right there. Come back down, and you see I outline parts of G again. So I'm sort of giving hints that I'm still in C, but I did a weird thing there, not gonna lie. It's a weird thing. See, that one doesn't sound quite as strong, but I liked it. So it's like whatever. But anyways, I got my first phrase. And my second phrase, I changed ideas. So this is an independent idea, melodically speaking, very independent idea. And I tried to vary up the rhythm a little bit, but I had some occurring things that sort of occurred more than once. Like this idea of holding something 3 beats and then the next beat, 3 beats, next beat, 3 beats, next beat. You see what I'm saying? 3 beats, next beat. That stuff is easier for the listener to sort of pick out. And yeah, they're just 2 independent ideas. Like that's a phrase. So that's introduction to phrasing. The notes are, I've tried to follow the rules generally. Occasionally, I may do some notes that sort of pass through other notes. Like this right here will be passing through notes. So, and then this down here helps me transition. So that's another thing. A lot of this, once you have the ideas down, it's getting creative rhythmically, which rhythm has not been a large part of our discussion up until this point. But yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I want to say really about phrases. It all comes down to, for the person who's wondering about the double phrase, like how do you get more phrases? Well, one of them's you got to have like some ideas, some themes that you want to develop. And I'm unfortunately not going to really approach developing in this series. Developing ideas, it would be approached in the other series. But you write out some sort of a melody. So melody number 1. So there's the melody number 2. So this was our melody has arrived. This one arrives right at the very end. And then we arrive at melody number 2, which is sort of a continuation of the first melody. Like you could consider that, but it's a very separate idea. And it just, just flows. I purposely wrote out chords that would allow me to do that. So as you just become more familiar with chords and stuff, you'll be able to write out melodic progressions. Now, if you want to write out a melody first, you've got to have like a pretty strong melody. There's no real secret to melody writing. As you get into part writing, then there's a million guidelines. I'd even venture to say rules, depending on what you want to do. So they're just good ideas. I've given you hopefully enough to sort of get melodic ideas in your head. We could talk forever about rhythm, but I just want to dive into chord progressions and start ripping that apart into shreds. If you have any questions about phrases, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.